But Drew's dark mustache, he looks the spitting image of Peter Sellers as the Inspector Clouseau.
Going for kind of looks like Sully on
settle for the Pink Panther.
What's that?
I was going for Tom Selleck, but I'll settle for the guy from Pink Panther.
Yeah. So I was gonna say you also kind of look like Sully on the Miracle on the Hudson. It looks like you could land a washing machine if. All right, welcome to episode 87 of Farm to Markets. This is the show where participants only get 5 minutes to state their opinions, and the person with the most time at the end wins, but there are no prizes. Today we are talking about teenagers and financial apps. If money makes you smarter, Uncrustables, quiet luxury, and ice baths. So, teenagers used to nag their parents for car keys and a little extra cash. These days, they're just as likely to want Uber or Venmo and Amazon accounts. Access to a growing library of payment apps is now a rite of passage and easier than ever. In May, Uber and PayPal's Venmo launched accounts for children ages 13 to 17. Cash App, Fidelity, Amazon, and others already offer similar services they pitch as a way to satisfy both adolescent desire for the apps and parents' anxiety about how to manage their use. For parents, these teen services are a kind of financial learner's permit that offers new ways to monitor their kids and instill better spending habits. Still is one more thing to worry about. Are these financial apps good for kids, or is just another way they can get themselves in trouble?
So I think it's a little bit of both. When I was younger, late 90s, early 2000s, people in their teens, so like high school, early college, they were starting to get, checking accounts with debit cards or like secured credit cards, jointly held in their parents and their name, with like a couple of $100 in maximum spending limits. From my limited anecdotal experience, the people that got started learning how to be responsible with these things earlier ended up not going hog wild when they got to college and finding themselves in thousands of dollars in credit card debt. And the ones that were completely sheltered and didn't have any idea how any of this worked, more of them got in trouble with like credit card debt than the ones who already kind of understood how the stuff worked. So overall, I don't think it's a bad idea to teach your kids how to be responsible with these things versus completely shield them from having to know or handle these things at all. So yeah, in general, yeah, kids could get in trouble with it. You hear stories about kids playing with their parents' iPhone and then they buy $500 worth of, stuff in some mobile game. But for the most part, yeah, I think it's better to teach your teenagers how to be responsible than it is to just kind of throw them into the real world and hope they don't go nuts.
There's certainly more opportunities to teach responsibility, and there's certainly more opportunities to teach or more opportunities for them to get in trouble. But it boils down to how the parents approach financial responsibility with their kids. I mean, when the debit card came out, it wasn't. I don't know if people were still having the same conversation then. Did it revolutionize the way people formed their money habits as kids? Gosh, I don't know what else there is to say. Kind of lost my train of thought. So, I'll just move on.
I think technology is morally neutral, even with our kids, is that it can be used for good and it can also be used for evil. There certainly is an opportunity for exploitation and abuse if we give kids more powerful technology. I guess reading the article, my biggest concern is how many fat kids are we going to have in the next generation, because they can't hop on their bicycle and go to their friend's house. They have to use an Uber to go to their friend's house. And if the families that were interviewed in this particular article look like they were pretty affluent, and if mom is so busy that she can't drive her kids to the friend's house and the kid can't ride his bike to the friend's house, there seems to be more dysfunction in those families than just whether or not we should get the kid a app for Uber or not.
I think I'll have to make another editing decision when we use the words fat and kids. in the same sentence. But no, I think Joe's right. Is that with my kids, is that we're going to teach them about money first, and then we give them some money that they can spend. So like right now, we're working on if you want to buy something and you have $5, and that thing that you want to buy costs $5.50, can you buy it? And a lot of times the answer is yes, and it's just like no, And then so the next step after that is that we're probably just going to do like rudimentary things. So if we're learning about budgeting, you're going to learn about what budgeting is first, then we'll do the envelope system. And we'll probably do that until you're old enough where you can, you have the fundamentals established, and then you can start using the apps. Because the first time I used DoorDash, I've never used Uber that I'm aware of. But some of these apps, it takes like 10 to 15 minutes to figure them out. It's not particularly complicated. So as long as you spend most of your time on the fundamentals, figuring out the apps is easy. So for at least for my kids, like I'm not going to give you access to the apps until you're, I guess, in college, I guess, when you can start making your own decisions. But I'm just going to make sure you have a good grasp of the fundamentals, and then you can get into all the whiz bang apps and stuff like that if they want to. But without the education behind it, yeah, you can get yourself in trouble with these things. Okay. So a new paper published in the Journal of Nature Communications by some Harvard researchers and their colleagues suggests that money can make kids smarter. The paper came out of a larger study on young brains. The research got brain scans of 10,000 children ages 9 to 11 years old in 17 states. They compared the scans of children from states that had generous child tax credits and expanded Medicaid with states that don't. They concluded that money did matter. On average, on average, wherever there was a higher cost of living, the effects of lower income on the brain and mind were greater. And the same effect held true for social policies. Social policies only kicked in for children who were eligible for those benefits. They didn't have an effect on richer children. So they're assuming that richer children were already smarter, had more developed brains, I guess. Do you think that income is directly linked to a child, like how a child's brain develops, as the study suggests?
So I don't think it's a direct link, but what reading about this suggests is what numerous other bits and pieces of research over decades has been slowly and steadily telling us, that for every ethnic group and whatnot, there are average IQs. But if you take kids in a poor or an average household and compare them from the same groups against another kid in an ideal situation, so a more affluent household, they have better access to good education. Usually one parent is at home more often because they're more financially stable. Better health care, that kind of stuff. That you see a pretty consistent across all ethnic groups, about 15 IQ points higher than in the poor or average households. So what it seems to suggest is that, if you take away a lot of stress and give people, better education and, a better ability to take care of themselves, that they end up basically better off all around, including intellectually. So I don't think it's too surprising. We used to have this idea called tabula rasa, which was every kid is a blank slate. Now we know that IQ is largely heritable. So I won't say that, money is the be all end all. It looks like you're kind of going to get the IQ that you're going to get, but you can juice it by putting a kid in a better situation. So I think this particular information is not a surprise, and it's just confirming what decades of research has started to consistently show.
Yeah, and the article, I guess the question was, does money have an effect on the development of a child's brain? I guess the article certainly says yes. Obviously, correlation doesn't equal causation, but that was the data, and it suggests that, yeah, in more affluent homes, the brains were more developed in the children, but it was only the hippocampus, I believe. So that's not the only thing. Just because you have a more developed hippocampus doesn't mean you're just going to have better outcomes for all other aspects of your life. There's certainly things to be learned that aren't just memory related. Gosh, what else? I didn't really prepare for the show, so I'm just kind of going off the cuff today. I guess I would want to know, like what's the breaking point? Because in Montana, I think the poverty line is 26,000. And so at what point does it become, is a child's brain developed like their affluent peers? Is it 30,000? Is it 50,000? I don't know. So I'd like to see where the breaking point is.
This seems like a rather politically correct study that decided on an outcome and then decided to get federal grant money to prove a particular point. I would be more interested in knowing why a bunch of poor Asian kids show up in the Silicon Valley and immediately start getting merit scholarships who made only fractions of the income that the residents of Silicon Valley kids were currently making in some of those schools. I don't think money is the reason for kids having more developed brains. I think it's experience that develops the brain. So a kid who is exposed to more books, to more ideas, to more experiences, to the arts, to great literature, I think their brain is going to develop differently than a kid who doesn't have access to those things. Most of the policies they say help, or the correlation is that primarily these are progressive states, very blue states, where you have a declining birth rate because these families are having less and less kids. At the same time, they have very progressive ideas about the welfare state. But the reality is that many of the people that were surveyed really aren't poor. They might have policies to help the poor, but the people being actually surveyed weren't that poor to begin with. So I'm a little bit cynical about this study completely.
I think the article did a good thing, because when I was in graduate school, the thing that they hammered into our head was, like, just like Drew said, correlation does not equal causation. And that's certainly true. Like, I actually, some of my research was published in a paper this year looking at emergency room data for pediatric, for kids, that get hurt in different activities like sports or on the playground, stuff like that. And it's easy to draw conclusions from what we see, but we have to compare it to other research that's done on it. So you don't want to just say that because these kids were doing this means that they're automatically a higher risk for this type of injury. And it's the same thing in the study, is that just because you live in this state and you happen to be below, your brain scan is underdeveloped compared to other states, it's good. Like, it's an interesting study, and it provides like the first stepping stone to like other studies. But then what happens is the media picks up on this and they say, well, according to this study, it means that kids that are part of this expanded Medicaid are actually smarter than kids who are not. When really what the study is saying is that we think there might be some evidence that shows this, but we have to do a lot more research. And that's the way empirical research goes, is that you have to do layer and layer of research before you get to the point where, like, okay, we have a pretty good understanding of this. So I think the article, even though it says correlation does not equal causation, does kind of jump the gun a little bit and say that, you know what, I think money makes sure your kids' actually brains more developed. So I think it's a little premature when the study was like, this might be an issue, but more research is warranted. All right. So Smuckers, the people that make like peanut butter and jelly, or just jelly, I don't know, whatever. Smuckers says demand for its Uncrustables sandwiches is boosting the company's bottom line, with net sales for the brand up 43%, or about $185 million for the quarter ending April 30th compared with the year earlier. This is part because the sandwich, which is basically like a calzone. I think Drew made a good analogy. This is kind of like a calzone. So it's typically crimped, a crustless circle with a handful of filling flavors, including jelly and peanut butter. So basically what they do is they take a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, fold it in half, and then cut the crust off, put it in a bag, and then they put it in a freezer. So they become like a favorite lunchtime, or they become a lunchtime favorite with school crowds. So like my kids eat them, and I've seen other kids at Emily's school eating these frozen peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. They send them out, they thaw, they're great, I guess. But Smucker CEO Tucker Marshall says that the future growth will be with adults, as he believes they will bring these sandwiches to the office, on trips, and to the golf course. Do you ever see yourself eating one of these Smucker's Uncrustables in a professional setting?
Personally, no. I would rather just, make my own peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But I completely understand why people would buy them. People trade their money to save time all the time. They buy frozen breakfast sandwiches, pre-formed burger patties, all kinds of stuff like that. If you're a busy parent and you're just wanting to save 5 minutes here and there, it's an easy thing to do. Just grab it out of the freezer, throw it in your kid's lunch bag, and you're done. As far as adults, same basic deal. Yeah, it's probably cheaper and easier to just make your own, but at the same time, it's a lot cheaper than going out to lunch every day. So, if you're doing that to replace an $11 sandwich from the lunch cart, great. Personally, I probably won't ever buy them from me though.
I just don't see these entering like the boardroom. The article mentioned that yeah, we're going to see these in briefcases. No, you're not. No, they're basically just they're for kids. Granted, yeah, they're okay. I've had an Uncrustable. They're incredibly sweet. They're packed full of jelly. So I just don't see them. I don't see adults really liking them too much. And Kayla, actually, my wife Kayla, she makes her own Uncrustables. She bought the mold, so it's basically like this calzone thing, and you just make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and you fold it in there and it crimps it, and there you go, you have an Uncrustable. I don't know why you need to go out and spend premiums for that, but no, I don't think adults are going to eat them. I have seen them on the trail in the ultra trail running world. Ultra marathoners mile 87 of a 100-mile race. You just need calories, and they're quick and they're fast, and they have a lot of carbs, a lot of sugar, but no, these aren't gonna. You're not gonna seeing too many adults eating these in the future. That's my opinion.
I was up at 6 o'clock this morning milking my own goats. I make my own cheese, grow most of my own food, make my own sausage, butcher my own animals. I don't see myself ever buying Uncrustables. If I went to your house and you offered me an Uncrustable, I'd probably eat it, but I can't see myself spending money that I had to work for on an Uncrustable when I can make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for a lot less expensive.
Yeah, I'll echo Drew's comments. I brought one for lunch one day because it was the only thing we had left in the house, and there was so much jelly in that thing. Like I almost gagged because yeah, the jelly is absurd. But no, it's really easy to make a peanut butter and jelly. I get why kids like them, but yeah, they're not for me, and I don't think Smucker's is going to see adults turn to them that much either. So. Okay, so according to the Wall Street Journal, which all these articles are from the Wall Street Journal, so I don't even know why I say that, but quiet luxury may be the next mega trend in clothing, in the clothing world, as higher net worth individuals prefer to wear clothes that do not display a particular brand's name or logo on the merchandise. Instead, they want people to be drawn to the quality of the clothing, which is usually accompanied by a hefty price tag. Will you get on board with the quiet luxury bandwagon?
I mean, I'm not going to spend a ton of money on clothes, but yeah, I mean, I would take a nice, comfortable pair of pants over one that has, the right label on it. So I guess so. I guess I would take quality over label.
I'm not going to spend premiums for clothes. Period. It's just not my thing. I think that it's just a new trend in the luxury world. Before it was just decked out with logos and whatever else. It told the world that this was expensive. Now the trend is, hey, I have money and I want you to know it, but it's not going to be real with logos. It's just going to be plain clothes. That's kind of how I dress anyway. So I guess I'm kind of ripping off the quiet luxury trend right now.
Unless Carhartt is considering taking the labels off their clothes, I don't think this is going to impact my decisions in clothing buying one iota.
Yeah, I would prefer just to wear clothes without labels on them in general. So if they can make them cheap, I'd wear the cheap clothes. But I probably wouldn't buy. Yeah, I really don't like buying expensive clothes, so I probably won't. All right. Last question is that previously the domain of athletes, bathing in cold water or ice has become a mainstream wellness trend across the U.S. The practice goes by many terms like cold plunging, ice bath, cold immersion therapy. Water temperatures below 59 degrees Fahrenheit is generally considered cold immersion. Cold immersion. People who swear by it say they have experienced wide-ranging health benefits like reduced anxiety, alleviate joint and muscle pain, and boost energy and focus. Will you make cold plunging part of your routine?
Well, probably not unless you count going swimming in a lot of the lakes around here, which I do regularly, and a lot of them are not warm. But from what I saw, its main feature is helping with muscle soreness. Beyond that, there's limited to no evidence that it does anything else. So as part of an exercise routine, probably not going to include it.
Yeah, when you shock the body by jumping into an icy cold bath, yeah, you're going to be a more awake, more alert. I don't think I'm going to go spend $50,000 on these cold plunge tubs that you see in like Beverly Hills. But yeah, every time I go hiking or trail running and there's a lake, I always jump in it. Jump in your pond all the time, Dad. It's not exactly 59 degrees. It's probably a little warmer than that most months in the summer. But yeah, I have nothing against it. But I'm not going to add a cold plunge bath to my home anytime soon.
I won't be installing a cold plunge bath anytime soon at my place either. I think we're at that point in our society where, in the absence of real stress, people are going to pay top dollar to invent stress on themselves. And I think jumping in cold water is something that people are willing to endure rather than have to break out a jar of jelly and a jar of peanut butter and make their own peanut butter sandwich. This might be the stress that they're going to choose instead.
Yeah, I just don't have the dedication to dump ice in my bathtub every morning and then jump in it. And like Alex alluded to, most modalities have a limited effect anyways. A lot of it's psychological. So, I mean, I'm not going to get cold just to, feel invigorated in the morning. So.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I know the water, I think in Kalispell comes out of the tap at around 50 to 55 degrees. So could just fill the bathtub with that and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, our tap water comes from what, like 80 feet below the earth where we're at, Dad. So it's pretty chilly when it comes out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Probably not as chilly as 13,000 feet below the surface of the ocean like
Yeah.
the Titanic is. But
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's just fixed at what, freezing, right above freezing.
yeah, something like that. Because it's pretty cold down there. So
Yeah, I suspect those people are feeling the effects of stress other than cold water right now.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see.
Well, I guess that isn't if they haven't already experienced a cold water immersion. So
I was gonna say the same thing, but I don't know if it's too soon
Yeah.
to start
yeah.
stuff like that.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that's it for episode 87. Man, Joe wins it. This is like 3 weeks in a row. Joe just knocking it out here. Good job. So, all right. We'll see you next week.